Howdy, my name is Joseph Staples. I was born in Ireland, but I had little chance of making a living or owning land, what with the famine and the fighting over religion. We heard about the gold being found out west, free for whoever had the grit to come and get it. I always had plenty of that. Now I made it out here, but never did make it rich. No, I never married either, but I did have a family of sorts. There were some characters I worked with. Like me, they came and ended up staying, not because they had to, but more because they found themselves making a life, a town, a good place to live. And if we were lucky, maybe we made a name for ourselves. Now, I always liked being part of the goings-on, so I joined the Placerville Volunteer Firefighters, the Neptune Company number 2. When my friend James Hume became Undersheriff of El Dorado County in 1864, I was his deputy. We hunted down thieves and outlaws. We got into a few scraps, chasing bandits through the brush, blue haze of gunpowder in the manzanita. Now, if you were just a common nuisance, stumbling around drunk or causing the women folk to complain, well, that'd be handled by my friend John Dick Van Eaton. He was constable then, but he came and gave Hume and I a hand on more than one occasion. There was George Rainey. He was more of a family man, and he made his living working with the trees and the forest around here. They were all a bit more cautious than I was, and maybe if I listened to them more, I'd have a little more time on earth before settling into this plot. It was the spring of 1864, May 25th or thereabouts, when we faced off in the McCollum gang up near Fiddletown. We got pinned down in a ravine, and Van Eaton took a bullet in the hip that hobbled him up pretty good. Then they got my horse in the leg, and it went tearing out from underneath me, and it was all I could do to hold on. Well, we managed to make it back to Placerville, and the story of what happened came back with us. Now, I suppose it was just some feller's way of trying to needle me, but some barfly in town starts going off about how I took damn good care to keep out of danger. Well, put him up on a horse and turn it into a bucking bronco, start hurling lead at him. We'll see how he handles himself. Now, that made my blood boil. And it was mighty hurtful because they all started laughing like they could see it be true. So I says right then and there, the next time I go, I'll be brought back dead or I'll bring back my man. Well, Van Eaton hadn't wholly healed from his hip wound when a stagecoach was robbed up on a blind turn past 13 Mile House. Now, that turn was so sharp that the stage had to come to a darn near dead halt in order to pass it. That's where those bandits lay in wait. They call it Bullion Bend because that's what they stole out of the Wells Fargo strong boxes that night. The gang, well, they considered themselves partisan rangers or Confederate soldiers that moved out west. You have to understand, the war affected us even out here in California. Both sides wanted to get their hands on that gold, and they were willing to rip our state in two in order to get it. Now, this gang of 7 men, they pulled off their heist at about 10 o'clock that night. Sheriff Rogers gets a message from the 13 Mile House. He rounds up his posse, and they head to the scene of the crime. Well, I meet up with Rainey and Van Eaton. We decide we're going to head towards Diamond Springs up to Pleasant Valley. See if we can't get a trace of them that way. We set off in the dark, and as we're coming near Spencer's, you might know it today as the holiday market. The dawn's coming near. And that place has always been a crossroads, so we stop and we get down, start looking around for tracks, and sure enough, fresh sets of about 6 or 7 horses headed south towards Fiddletown and Stockton. So we have a conversation amongst ourselves, and well, Van Eaton, he's got a good fast horse, so he decides he's going to head back, go get the sheriff, and then the whole posse would come back down. But I sure wasn't going to lay off this track and let another gang of thieves get away. So Rainey and I continue on to the Somerset house at the next crossroads. And we're pulling up, and Van Eaton, he gets off his horse, and Rainey gets off his horse, and he goes and ties him up to the oak tree, and I'm looking around when something catches my eye. a lone shotgun leaning against the wall by the last door of the Somerset house, facing the road. So I walk right up to the open door of the kitchen and see Miss Davis in there. She's cooking up a big breakfast. So I ask her, "Good morning. You seen any horsemen pass by this night?" She says she got 6 would just come in. So I walk right down that platform and I grab up that shotgun and I'm coming back with my heart a-pounding. Rainey walks up and passes me. And he goes right up to that last door and opens it up. And just as cheery as can be, asks him, "Good morning. You fellers see any horsemen pass by this night?" Well, I know we got them. These are those fellas that hit that stage. I'm sure of it. So I'm heading up there and I'm cocking back the ears when Rainey comes back down, tries to stop me, puts his hand on my shoulder and whispers low and close, "Hold on. We are right on him." Hold on? Hold on for what? Now, George was not one to take chances, but I was taking action. So I pushed my way past him. When he still tried to stop me, I lowered my shoulder into him and I barged up that platform and I flung open that door on that nest of vipers and I said, "You are my prisoners. Surrender." Now, them last few minutes seemed like a lifetime in themselves. There might have been a standoff for a smite. I had my shotgun leveled at the first man I saw, but there was more in the room, and they were not going to surrender. I saw another man go for his gun, so I leveled my muzzle at him, but then the first man moved. I heard the bullets ring out, and I managed to get off a shot, but it was all I could do. The bullets hit me in the side and spun me around, and I see George coming up right behind me. Now I got myself shot down like a dog and put Rainey in danger. Now, I hadn't planned on getting killed that day, but there I was bleeding out on the floor of the Somerset house. And those bandits chased George out into the road and they shot him up pretty good. Now, Maria Reynolds, she had a lot to do with him surviving that day. They were dragging him back and they were about to shoot him in the head. And she gives him a tongue lash and says, "Ain't you ashamed of yourself, shooting a dead man?" Well, if it wasn't for her, there would have been 2 of us coming back boots first that day. Like I said, I was the first lawman gunned down in the line of duty in El Dorado County, but I hadn't planned on it. Now, my friend James Hume, he had planned for emergencies. He was from a more New England background, and he had purchased this here grave plot just in case he came back sunny side up someday. So he heard that Rainey and I were headed to the Somerset house as he was heading back from Stockton, and he got there about the same time that the sheriff did. He managed to get my body back to Placerville and arranged to have it displayed at the firehouse so that my friends could come and pay their last respects. Then he gave me his own grave plot. Now, I don't know what I would have done if I had survived that day, but my dying sure seemed to have a significant impact on my friends' lives. James Hume, he tracked down my killers and he managed to bring Thomas Poole to justice, had him tried and convicted for killing me, and then Poole was hung in Placerville the next year. Well, he did such a good job of investigating the crime and pursuing the criminals that Wells Fargo decided to make him head of their new detective bureau. And he died still working for Wells Fargo 40 years later in 1904. As for Rainey and Van Eaton, well, they quit the badge after bullying Ben. Rainey went back to being a carpenter and a millwright, but he never quite got over what happened. And Van Eaton, well, himself being from the Carolinas and it being a gang of Confederates make things uncomfortable to say the least. He used that southern drawl and smooth charm to win the confidence of the prisoners and get information on the others' whereabouts. So he tracked down my killers and helped bring them to justice, but he moved from Placerville shortly thereafter. Now, his grandson said that Van Eaton was a staunch Democrat, but he voted for Lincoln in 1864. I wonder if all that happened that summer had anything to do with it. Thank you.